Hi Joshua, can you believe it? We're still here.
We're still here.
You and me, the Christian Legal Centre, Christian Concern, we are still here.
Unbelievable.
It's absolutely unbelievable. This has gone, your case has gone all the way up to the Secretary of State for Education.
And still no justice.
Still no justice. What has she said on the recommendation of the Teachers Regulation Agency? Well, first of all, the panel's recommendation to the Secretary of State was that you should be prohibited from teaching, and that that was in the public interests because you exhibited unacceptable professional conduct and conduct that may bring the profession into disrepute. Gillian Keegan, the Secretary of State, says that she's considered the panel's findings carefully. I have to determine, she says, whether the prohibition order is proportionate and in the public interest. In considering that for this case, I've considered the overall aim of a prohibition order, which is to protect pupils and to maintain public confidence in the profession. I have considered the extent to which a prohibition order in this case would achieve that aim, taking into account the impact that it will have on you, Joshua. And there were three aims of the prohibition order: to safeguard pupils, to maintain public confidence in the profession, and to uphold proper standards. So Joshua, you have been prohibited from the classroom, to safeguard pupils, to maintain public confidence in teaching, we're laughing, and to uphold proper standards of conduct. And this is indefinitely. We can go back after 2 years and make a case, but here it is. The panel considered that a review period of 2 years may afford Mr. Sutcliffe the opportunity to reflect on the findings and develop greater insight and remorse for your actions. So, Joshua, unless you say sorry, unless you show remorse and insight, you are excluded from the classroom, you're a safeguarding risk, and you bring the teaching profession into disrepute. Well, let's think about this, shall we?
Let's think about this.
These findings, I find them insulting because I know you. I find these, well, there we are. I can't actually find the words. It's like they are...
It's like another world.
It's like another world. It's a world that I don't inhabit. It's a world that I do not inhabit. It's like it's a world where sanity
it's gone out the window.
Is out of the window. It's an insane world. This is an insane judgment. And it's insane why? Because let's go back to, I just want to introduce everyone that's watching this to you.
Yes, thank you. Well,
Joshua, you are, when did you qualify?
Yeah, I qualified in 2013 from the University of Exeter, which is renowned for having good teacher training. And I've had a distinction and went on to my teaching career in a boarding house, actually, and had a spotless record and got on with all the students and teachers alike. But obviously, my second school, they really took issue with me being a Christian, and more so me sharing the Christian faith in my private time, and also running Christian groups within the school.
And I think that we had something of this, didn't we? Because you had a very successful Bible club that was running most lunchtimes at the Chowar School.
Exactly, it was running most lunchtimes, and students could choose.
Yeah.
If they wanted to come and learn about the Christian faith. And sadly, that Bible club was shut down, and that really was the beginning of where we are today, because I was really not pleased about that, the school taking away my freedom to give away my time at lunchtimes and share the Christian faith with the students.
And were pupils and students coming, were they coming to that Bible club?
They were. It was very popular, you know.
Yeah.
Most lunchtimes students would come in and out, and I was able to share John's Gospel with them, and we would read the text together and discuss the text together. But also they came to me with moral questions. And I would say, well, the Bible teaches, and I would share, positions on sexual ethics or other things about death or murder. There's a range of things that the Bible speaks to.
And the truth is that this is a secondary school. So it's exactly the kind of time from 11 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the age when students are asking these questions, particularly when you get to
teenage years.
That's
exactly.
Particularly, and this was a forum to do that. So you were running this great Bible club. Pupils were coming and going to it. It was open most lunchtimes. And how did you find teaching maths?
Well, I love teaching maths, and one of the great joys of being a teacher for so long is seeing pupils gain confidence, improve. I mean, it's often something students lack confidence in, and often after being in my class, the opposite would happen. They'd gain confidence. I'd always try and support them in their growth and understanding of maths, and that's something I've always enjoyed doing. And it's a subject I've always enjoyed.
That's really wonderful, in fact, because, I would have been one of those pupils, Joshua, who found it really hard in my early to mid-teens. I found understanding maths concepts really difficult. And I remember to this day the name of my teacher, Mr. Clark, Peter Clark. He helped me to understand maths and not be scared of maths, and I think it's the same. That's what the kind of thing that you're doing.
Exactly, and it's encouraging to see the young people gain confidence and go on to get good results, and that's something that I've always done very well.
Yeah.
And my classes often outperformed parallel classes, and it's something I take great pride in, is explaining things to the young people and so in a way that they would understand.
The other thing, Joshua, is that you yourself were a bit rebellious. Is that right, in your teenage years and into your early 20s?
Well, I was living by the standards of the world, Andrea, and thankfully God rescued me from myself and my lifestyle, and and that's part of the reason I gave so much to the teaching profession, is wanting to serve the young people and to help them to have successful and joyful lives.
Yes, exactly. And this is one of the things I really love about you. And I can say it's a thread that honestly runs through all the people that we serve here at the Christian Legal Centre. But it's people that really love Jesus and really love their neighbour, really love their community. And what I love about you, Joshua, is this, I always have this feeling from you whenever I see you. And I remember very clearly the first time I met you. And I was bowled over by you as a young man, as a young teacher.
A few years ago now.
It's a few years ago now. You're still young. It's all relative. But you came in with this love for the Lord Jesus. But I had this great sense of, you were a vocational teacher, but because of what you had been like. Not so long before, not so long as a teenager, young man in your 20s, that this meant a lot to you, because you didn't want the kids to lose or to do the things that you did and things like that. Well,
this is it. I didn't want the kids to be doing the things that I was doing. That's why the Christian gospel is so powerful.
So powerful.
It's life-changing.
It is life-changing. It is life-changing. I mean, of course, and I know that you've been a great sportsman, you were National Basketball League. Mm-hmm. So the point is here, we've got a young man, a maths teacher, passionate Christian, good sportsman. This is a great package.
I actually ran the basketball team in my first school, and I would serve the school, serve the students, and serve them with the skills that I had. I even ran the chess club at one of the schools.
Yeah, because mathematicians are always good at chess. Maybe there's also a link with basketball as well. No, I think it's because you're tall. I actually think basketball's, but it is tactical and it's fast.
It is faster paced.
Tactical and fast. Yeah. So there we are. We've got this teacher who runs basketball clubs, who runs a chess club, who also runs a Bible club. I mean, these things are what's going on in your life because you love your students. You are an honest, to God, teacher who loves being in the classroom
and serving the young people
and serving the young people and helping them
develop
and helping them develop. And Joshua, what people want to say is because of your evangelistic zeal, because of your inability to shut up about Jesus.
It's impossible, Andrea. He's really rescued.
You're meant to leave him at the door of the school, at the door of the classroom.
Impossible.
You're meant to comply with the.
It's who I am.
With the, yeah.
I think I would.
What did that mean? But let me tell you. So when you were in the maths room, when you were meant to be teaching maths, were you teaching about maths or were you talking about Jesus?
Well, I wouldn't be in the classroom for 7 years without teaching maths, and I always tried to. That's why the Bible Club was such a nice forum to discuss the Christian faith. And obviously outside of the classroom, I would be out on the streets on the weekend preaching the gospel and trying to sincerely preach the gospel. And but always within the classroom, I would act with real restraint on those issues and those matters because I found that it was distracting to the task at hand. And actually it came out in the evidence that there wasn't much of anything within the classrooms that. Yeah,
they were wanting to say that you talked all the time about Jesus in the class. This is the kind of thing they were wanting.
The students knew obviously that I was a Christian, and the students would talk about that.
And you were well known, and you were a street preacher at the weekends as well. So we had we've got a young zealous man here for the Lord. It's great.
Yeah, and the students knew about that, but. Like I say, in the evidence, throughout all these pages that we have here, there was a few small accusations that they couldn't prove, and that the TRA sadly went along with. But really, all the students were saying that I was treating them with dignity and respect. And one of the witnesses actually said, "He's a very good maths teacher."
Yeah.
So you'd think that the TRA would have a bit more
compassion.
Understanding that they'd see that I was performing my duties.
It's interesting that I used the word compassion there. Understanding, well, they ought to have understanding. But the panel appear to have really no understanding of your Christian faith, none whatsoever. And I often say to the church, we have failed to disciple the nation. We failed to teach them to speak what the Christian faith is, or to understand what it means when you passionately love Christ. But the panel here, it says, was mindful of Mr. Sutcliffe's strong and sincere religious beliefs rooted in deep faith, which led him to have a personal conviction against using gender-preferred pronouns. Mr. Sutcliffe had a right to these views, they say. It is the manner. It's always, so this is one of the things that runs through our cases. Christian, you're free to believe, but you're not free to express your belief in that way. So this is right at the beginning of this whole issue, because it's hard. Can we remember a world? I can remember a world. I can remember a world when this was not an issue. I mean, in 2013 to 14, when the Same-Sex Marriage Act was passed, we were not in a world of children self-identifying in schools, but it came almost immediately thereafter.
Right.
And I've always said I was amazed at how fast this became the next issue. People transitioning, so-called transitioning their sex.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't actually do that, but that was the next issue. And then the idea that this would happen in schools, and you are one of the very early cases on this. And we have Nigel and Sally Rowe. We have some unpublished cases, but you were one of the first cases in the public square. On this.
Yeah.
You started working at the Cherwell in 2015. You were going along very happily for 2 years. And you were asked to take this 15-year-old pupil into the classroom. Now, before we get on to the specifics of that, had you been given any training on the trans issue at all?
There was an assembly, but that wasn't until after the student had come. And it was given by the Stonewall advocate in the school, the LGBT advocate, and someone who is out in the public domain as being an advocate for that community. She gave the training saying that gender is a spectrum.
Yeah.
I actually raised a concern about that, but as I say, that wasn't until after the student
Was
came
that
into my
official
class.
training, or was it a
It was
school assembly?
It was just a teacher assembly.
It was a teacher
meeting.
A teacher meeting.
Yeah.
So there was a teacher meeting with training from Stonewall.
With training from Stonewall, yeah.
And so, how did you get told about the transfer?
It was
and the
just a
need of this
brief
pupil?
discussion. Be aware this student wants to be called a boy, and obviously I wasn't really savvy to the transgender issues.
Had it even crossed your mind?
Not at all, really. I hadn't thought about it or knew about it, and as I saw this student, I immediately knew that the student was a girl, and so.
Well, how did you know that the student was a girl?
The way her appearance and so on, and but I figured I'd just use the pupil's name.
What was your intention? So you were told that this young person, this young girl, was trans. That you were told this, and that she wanted to be known by.
She wanted to socially transition.
Socially transition,
now,
yeah. And so, what did you? And so, how? So, what did you determine to do at that point?
I just thought it was a sensible thing just to call her by her name that she'd chosen, and I just went along with that. And for a while, it actually worked. I think she was in my class for 6 to 8 months, but she made a complaint about me. And that kind of was the beginning of the snowball to where we are today.
Yes, and
her complaint about me refusing to use her pronouns, of choice,
yes.
Which goes against obviously my conscience.
Yes.
As a Christian, we're men and
but
women.
it wasn't as specific as that, was it, at the beginning? Because
No.
it was, you had said, "Well done, girls," to a group of girls.
Two girls, both of whom gave witness statements in this hearing, and both of them are part of the LGBT community.
And they were both so they're both part of the LGBT community. They were part of the LGBT community in the school.
In the school, and also I saw them at the Pride March.
Yes.
I was handing out Christian leaflets at the Pride March. That came out in evidence. And, we made the case that after they saw me handing out Christian leaflets, they really took it upon themselves to try and get me in trouble, and made complaints, and parents made complaints, and it was those complaints that were used by the TRA.
Not many parents make. It was only her.
It was just the parents of the two LGBT students that made these complaints, and
in fact, it was the parents that made the complaints.
It was not about my classroom conduct, by the way, but
not about your teaching.
Not about my teaching, but about my Christian faith. It's all about. The complaints were about the Christian faith, the fact that I was handing out the Christian leaflets, and the fact that I had these Christian views. And those complaints were used by the TRA against me, and found me essentially bringing the profession into disrepute for not going along with what those parents want me to think, and
and indeed what the school really wanted you to think, because you were then put into an isolated situation, weren't you? When the complaints came in, you were put into the teacher's staff room, which had glass, but you were basically made to stay there.
Made to put in detention, for upsetting these LGBT students, and it just shows these students have more power than it seems anyone.
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? During this teaching regulation agency trial, because that's what it felt like. It felt like a real trial. It didn't feel like
the Christian faith on trial.
It was certainly
really
the Christian faith on trial, and everything around these students during this whole trial was that they should be protected, treated as very vulnerable, give evidence behind screens with people with them. In order to help them.
They're adults now, by the way.
But they are also adults, and names protected. Mm-hmm. So all of this there was a lot of paraphernalia. Anybody in the public had to leave the room when they were giving evidence, and certain parts of the evidence were we would have to leave the room, apart from you, of course. But generally, this whole protection around everything else. So there's a massive paraphernalia around their protection. By the way, we care about these pupils. We love these pupils.
And we want what's best for
and
these
we want
pupils.
what's best for these pupils. But you could not, in good conscience, call the student, you could not call her a boy.
Yeah, and I think that should be the case for all teachers.
But in fact, what the panel found with regard to that Mr. Sutcliffe had no tolerance for pupil A's gender preference by deliberately using the female pronoun. You didn't deliberately use the female, but that's what they found. But when referring to pupil A, both in the classroom and on national television. In doing so, you failed to show tolerance of and respect for the right of others. The panel was mindful that Mr. Sutcliffe could have showed a degree of tolerance by using pupil A's name as opposed to deliberately using the female pronoun.
Well, I think you should replace tolerance with submit to their worldview, which is impossible for me to do. I don't believe the same things that they believe.
Yes.
I don't believe that gender is fluid. I believe it's immutable.
Sex is an immutable characteristic, that gender is a construct. It's a social construct.
Well, this is what they say, and I can't go along with that. For me, sex and gender are the same.
Yep.
And you can't change that. And they're not recognised in law at that age. And so it shouldn't be that we go along with how they feel about their gender. It should be that we go along with what is true.
Yes. And the panel found that the ethos of the Chilwell School was explicitly diverse and inclusive. Well, I'm afraid you weren't diverse. It wasn't diverse and inclusive enough to conclude you.
No.
No. And the panel had regard to the Chilwell School's code of conduct, which stated that in the light of the panel's findings against Mr. Sutcliffe, which involved findings of unacceptable professional conduct, and you brought the profession into disrepute, and these are serious findings. They matter to the safeguarding and well-being of children. And really what we're all about is the well-being of children.
Is the well-being of children. And, the teaching profession, they've said that I've brought the profession into disrepute, but it's the teaching profession that's going along with a lie. And they're bringing themselves into disrepute.
And this teaching regulation agency, to find so comprehensively against you, all the way through this, they were also believing the students over you.
Oh, of course, it's the students.
It was always believing the
course.
Students over you.
The students who, by the way, had something, didn't really like me, and not me, because they said I'm a good maths teacher.
They said you're a good maths teacher. I think they just didn't like your views.
Like my views. They didn't like my views.
I mean, at the end of the day, you were a pretty good maths teacher. Everyone agrees.
That's what they said.
And we had character witnesses to say how good a maths teacher you are. And I know people who've been taught maths by you, and I know how much they think you're a brilliant maths teacher. And I know parents of some of your pupils
who all say the same thing. It was all about their distaste for my views, and the TRA went along with that, and it's obviously a really sad day for the teaching profession.
It's a really sad day. And then there was another less well-known accusation against you, because you moved to school, and of course your reputation followed you.
The students found out immediately.
Yeah, the students found out within days. And then, of course, you were a marked man again.
Yeah.
And what we then had was...
I was at that school for a year, by the way.
Yeah.
And my students, again, did very well.
Yes. Yes, and again, it was one student.
And again, one student who didn't like my views, Andrea.
Who said that you showed a video, but in fact, again, they believed that you showed this PragerU video on masculinity.
Right.
In the classroom. The panel, again, believed the student over you. You were quite clear that you hadn't done that, but that you had, in discussion, because it was a boys' school.
Boys' school, and we had 40 minutes in form time every morning, and after discussing the Christian faith, which was part of our job type role, we would discuss...
Because it was a Catholic school,
It was a Catholic school,
yeah.
And so, that was a nice time to discuss the Christian faith in that form time.
Yeah.
But, some of their thing, the boys would have questions and thoughts about parts of history or politics and a whole range of things. As young people do, they have questions. And usually
and how old were these children?
13, 14.
Yeah.
And usually,
all boys.
You sort of don't go too far. You kind of, keep a bit of an affront of being a professional and things. But, with one particular boy, I would say, well, why don't you look up this content? Why don't you think about it from this angle? And because he was just so inquisitive. And so I recommended the Prager University as an educational channel that provides educational content that they could look into themselves. And they found this video on making men masculine again, and that was the video that actually they complained about, and it was that complaint that was used by the TRA, the complaint about that video, which the student watched on their own time, that the TRA have said that's inappropriate.
TRA actually believed the student and believed that you showed it in the classroom, which you deny, but that's their finding of fact. But even let's say, are we really living in a world?
Let's go down that road.
Let's even go down that road where you show a PragerU video in the classroom, and let's say, let's discuss. But what do the Teachers Regulation Agency say about this? They say, the panel found that by not providing the pupils with an opportunity to discuss any alternate views, Mr. Sutcliffe failed to treat his pupils with dignity or to build relationships. The panel noted the relevant addition of keeping children safe in education and stated all professionals should make sure their approach is child-centred. This means they should consider at all times what's in the best interest of this child.
There's just so much wrong with that statement, isn't there? There's so much wrong with that statement.
Yeah, the best interest is essentially to have no viewpoint, or to comply with the LGBTQI viewpoint, not.
And that's the only thing.
The only thing. I mean, of course, this PragerU. We know PragerU are dynamic videos, and it was actually about said in strong language, but really just talking about what it is to be masculine, what it is to love and protect women, what it is to serve women.
Mm-hmm. Encouraging young men to take
responsibility, which is what you have always said on that video that you wanted to do. This is a very uncomfortable judgment. It's very punishing, and what I've noticed is that the new way of silencing people that think like you, people that are Christians, is to come via the regulatory agencies.
Mm.
So you're not fit to be a teacher because you're a Christian.
That's essentially the ruling.
And essentially the ruling. And you are prohibited for forever unless you show sufficient remorse and insight, and that will mean
repenting from being a Christian.
From being a Christian,
which is impossible.
I mean, it's this language of you are a danger to children, you are a safeguarding risk. Then it's next the language of...
That's a smear on my
name. That's an absolute
character.
smear on your character. But then next is you're not fit to work with children because you have these viewpoints. Mm. And that is increased. That is the way that it's going.
Is it a totalitarian state? I thought we're a free nation, Andrea. I thought it's a Protestant country, the United Kingdom.
Well, we don't have toleration here.
No,
they're equal and diverse so long as you agree with them, and there is no tolerance whatsoever for someone who expresses their faith. So you can just exist, but you mustn't manifest your faith in any way.
Yeah.
But in fact, it is It is in a sense your existence, your presence, the fact that you testify.
This is it. The fact that I've shared the Christian faith, outside of the classroom, the fact that I'm vocal about what the Christian faith is, that's really been the thing that has brought me to this state. It's not, my conduct within the classroom. It's not the complaints. These are just excuses almost. They don't want a Christian in the classroom. Yeah,
Joshua, we will press on with this. We're going to appeal this dreadful judgment. We know that God knows the end from the beginning, and it's painful and long, isn't it?
It has been arduous, Andrea. It's been a tough journey, and obviously my reputation is on the line, but we know what the truth is, and so we will appeal, and we pray for justice in this case.
And there is also peace and joy, isn't there, in the midst of this?
Yeah, because above all, we know that God is for us, and God will always provide.
And if God is for us,
who can be
against us?
Exactly.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Joshua.
It's been a great discussion. Thanks, Andrea.